And we start at the top, the race for the White House. Despite a devastating first debate debacle, Barack Obama regrouped, recouped, and realized his goal of a second term as the nation's chief executive. Mitt Romney, the choice of a frustrated Republican Party, put up a valiant fight, but fell behind the incumbent in both popular and electoral votes. Now, voters in exit polls said the economy was issue number one. The economy, as we know, has been struggling during the Obama administration. So how do we explain the fact that Obama won when the economy was issue number one and the economy is not functioning as well as many people had hoped? Steve?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the things that people said in the exit polls, which struck me as, quite frankly, bizarre, but it's reality, is that the economy is the main feature. Romney can do a better job on the economy, but it's all Bush's fault. And I find that to be bizarre. And so what I did is went way back beyond all the pundits, okay? And nobody in this room is going to agree with me. But this is what I truly believe. I believe we are in dire trouble in this country, and this election, unfortunately, the American people spoke. Alexis de Tocqueville got it right. Democracies can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. Now, hold on.
He didn't say that.
Yes, he did.
Say that. No, he
did say it.
That's a
direct. It's a direct
checked it
quote.
last night.
It's a
No,
direct
it's not.
quote.
It's a myth.
I was there when he
checked
said
last
it.
night.
I was there when he said it. Okay.
No, you weren't, but I was.
The fact of the matter is, we are in a situation now where, if the American people, as they did, chose to go with 4 more years of the path we were on the past 4 years, then it seems to me that the only rational basis for that is to say we want stuff and we'll give it to us.
I want to know what. Hold on. I want to know what Alexis de Tocqueville said that he misquoted.
He did not say that. Go online, you can check it out. It's a quote from 20 or 30, 40 years ago from somebody else that's been attributed to Alex.
Read his book, Yale. Read his book. I read his book in high school.
Let me just add to the discussion. I believe your question was, how is it possible that the economy being as difficult and painful in many respects for people, however, on the right track?
Absolutely.
In terms of employment, in terms of housing, in terms of, for the first time, consumer confidence is way up, the highest in 10 years. So, Mike, people generally understood it's on the right track, and they didn't.
Fair to say they believe things were getting better, although they weren't great.
Mike, I'd like to respond
hang on,
if I
Mary.
can.
When told about how people felt about the economy, yes, it was concern, but people also felt like it is getting better.
Why?
So, because it is getting better.
Really?
It is, of course, it's getting better.
In what respect?
Why don't we start with the stock market?
The unemployment
the
rate is
300
not
down yesterday. Let's start there.
The unemployment
Yeah, it's up
rate
4,500 since Obama became
is not as
president.
high as it was. It is getting better.
roaring along.
But the other piece is the lack of confidence in Romney on so many other issues.
Steve Rhodes has never been this quiet for this long.
Let's let Steve.
You're a moderate Republican. You describe yourself as that. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say.
What's your reaction to what happened to the Republican Party in Tuesday's election?
I think that they have lost a segment of the population that they need to get back. Part of it is the fact that you have the Chris Kobach wing of the Republican Party, which has alienated a huge segment of the population. There are more have-nots than haves, and I think the have-nots came out and said, we want our share of what's going on in this economy, and by gosh, that is what they fought for, and that's what they went out and voted for. And you know, you can't make a winning argument today out of the fact that you don't have the minority vote, the youth vote, the women's vote. I mean, you can't make a majority if you alienate that entire segment of the
Well, it's being
population.
said the Republican Party is too old, too white, and too male.
Yes.
You think that's an accurate description?
It's trying to take us backwards instead of forward.
I don't
and
agree
you're
with that
too
at all.
far. No, whenever any party shifts too far to the right, it's very difficult for them to maintain any hold on the office of the president.
Good
and
point,
history
ma'am.
tells you that.
Excellent point.
If you're too extremist in your views and policies,
nothing
On election night, President Obama gave what I thought was a very good, very
Brilliant.
conciliatory speech, Let's watch a portion of it and see what our reaction is.
Tonight, you voted for action, not politics as usual. You elected us to focus on your jobs, not ours. And in the coming weeks and months, I am looking forward to reaching out and working with leaders of both parties to meet the challenges we can only solve together. Reducing our deficit, reforming our tax code, fixing our immigration system, freeing ourselves from foreign oil. We've got more work to do.
Okay, Mary,
Yes.
do you think the Republican Party is going to take a look at this, listen to what he had to say, and believe that he's now open for business, he's looking at compromise?
Well, I think there are spots of hope around the country for moderate. First of all, there aren't many moderate Republicans left. Let's just be factual about it all. The far right has taken over the Republican Party to an extent that it cost them the election, and Gwen is right. Who will step forward in the states? Will there be somebody in Kansas that will step forward and take on Sam Brownback, who's Paul Ryan and Brownback are the same Chris Kobach and his voter suppression agenda and all the other stuff? The point about the night was that Mitt Romney tried to run for president to the right of the extremist right in his party, and then tried to quickly shift back to the middle right before the election when his very smart people knew it wasn't working. So always Boehner is a possibility in the House, and there are all kinds of other Republicans that could be of assistance, but there are not enough of them, Mike, and so is there going to be gridlock?
Boehner is the leader, and he said yesterday
Yes.
something that sounded conciliatory
Okay.
and oriented
it
toward
sort of does.
compromise.
I think the good point is, I mean, I agree the Republicans has to be entitlement reform. I want Harry Reid out of there. He's an obstructionist and should go. Mitch McConnell goes fine too, but from the Democratic side, get rid of that guy in the Senate. Get somebody in there who's more willing to work with the Republicans to get some of the stuff done. I agree with the president that having something in the middle, a Simpson-Bowles type thing where you cut entitlements and yes, raise some taxes on people. You probably have to get rid of the tax break that I've been getting and most of us have been getting for Social Security for 2 years because now we're underfunding Social Security. I mean, we don't want the
Don't
economy
you
to slip
think the
into
smart
recession.
thing?
I understand that.
Don't you think the smart thing to do it for Obama would be to embrace Simpson-Bowles?
Yes.
Come out
2
today
years
and
ago,
say,
yes.
Well,
But he's not going to,
Well,
Steve, and that's the problem. And the
well,
you're
we'll
right.
see.
Paul Ryan
those
didn't embrace
positions,
Simpson-Bowles.
those positions,
Your guy
those
didn't embrace
positions are the
Simpson-Bowles.
positions that I'm hearing are extreme positions, Yale. And those are the positions
they're
that
not.
Mitt Romney
come
ran
on,
on.
come on,
And the American
stop
people
it.
said, no, we want
no.
to go
American-
with the other
what the
positions. I
American
agree with you
people-
completely. We have to have them.
Two-thirds of the American people want to see tax cuts for the middle class and not for the wealthy. And so the Republicans have to compromise on that issue. I think the people have clearly spoken on that.
And what do
they
we
need to
get for that,
compromise
Gwen?
on that.
Tell me,
I mean,
if we tax the wealthy, what do we get for it? We
Why
get to pay for
shouldn't-
1 week of
are
the
you
government
making
expenditure.
It's
a
still
case
the
to let
principle,
the-
whatever the reason is.
what I'm making a case
we've
for is
got to
this.
stop protecting
What
the
I'm-
wealthy
no,
at the expense
no,
of
what I'm making a case
the
for
people
is
of the have-nots.
do what the
All right.
president said he would do. Cut, he said, and he said it over and over again. He said it 4 years ago. He said it the other night. We need to cut the deficit. I'm all for him doing that. In 4 years, he didn't
How
even
we
try.
cut the
We
deficit.
know how to
come on,
cut the
he's
deficit.
tried.
Cut the
Hold on.
deficit by
Listen,
raising taxes on millionaires.
Just
More happened-
acknowledge the
It
fact
means
that the
Gwen,
president had to
hang
deal
on.
with the Congress
More
that he
happened
said they
Tuesday
would
night.
make him
More
fail.
happened Tuesday night than just electing a president. Republicans maintain control of the U.S. House, although I think the Democrats picked up a couple of seats. Democrats still control the Senate by a larger margin than before, and the president is the same one who has been there for the past 4 years. What's the difference? What has
Nothing.
changed?
Well, the
And that's the whole point.
the
It was a
difference.
status
Let me,
quo
if I
election.
could respond.
Well-
The difference is,
lot has
first of
changed.
all, 20 women in the Senate. I mean, you know, there are so many years when the women's issues have come up, and it's the year of the women and this and that. But guess what? This year really was. This year, we elected a woman in Nebraska and a Democratic woman to the Senate in North Dakota, the first lesbian woman in Wisconsin going to the Senate. Surprise, surprise. In addition to Elizabeth Warren and our own Claire McCaskill, who led the ticket in Missouri. So that's different. And it's not just that there was too little women's issues over here. Women were the predominant voters, and the gap between
Okay, but how's that going to solve what Mike was asking
because
about?
it's an economic issue. Women will not stand for
Is it
Obamacare being
fair to
rolled
say?
back.
Well,
Is
that's
it
not-
fair to
what
say
does that have to do
that
with
the
it?
deadline,
Money.
the fiscal cliff,
Yes.
is very near?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
the end of
And
the
that-
year.
yes.
The time
That's-
pressure may
that's
be
right.
what
Time
And nothing
makes
has changed
makes
on
a
that.
difference.
Right.
All right.